So thank you on behalf of the Clear Michigan Foundation and everybody for coming tonight. I especially want to thank Amy Lang and Jack Westbury for serving as our MC and our keynote speaker for this event. And I know that Amy and Jack are not just incredible journalists, but they're also civil rights advocates and humanitarians, although sometimes we refer to Amy as a canine Aryan or something. No more sad dog stories, Amy, please stop. Anyway, the thing about journalists that they can do more than anything to further a cause is to shine a light on injustice wherever and whenever they see it. And I know two individuals no more than Amy and Jack who have made that professional mission of theirs. And it's in large part, I think, because of their stories and their focus and their attention to LGBTQ rights issues that people know and understand the stories of those who suffer from discrimination in our society. And so I'm extremely grateful to have both of you with us tonight. So thank you both of you. I also want to recognize our board at this time. These are some of the hardest working people that I have ever known in my lifetime. These are not board members who in name only show up 4 times a year to sit around a table. These are dedicated volunteers who do everything for this organization. They staff our events, they draft our press releases, they handle our social media, and they issue the check. They are dedicated to the interests of equality and justice at great personal sacrifice to themselves, and for it they ask nothing at all in return. So I'd like to commend each of them personally. Please stand and allow yourselves to be recognized for your amazing work. Our Secretary, Brad Flynn. His lovely wife, Mary Barr. Community trustees, Tim Rohrbeck. Past mother-in-law of all time, Mary McGuire. Mary Pollock. All the time. Very much appreciated all your hard work. So there's some other people who are here tonight and whose hard work and courageous acts I would also like to recognize. I want to talk about Judge Kathleen McCarthy, Chief Judge of the Family Division of the Wayne County Circuit Court, because where are you, Judge? Judge McCarthy was the presiding judge on a case that many of you probably don't know about, called Harmon v. Davis in 2010, in which she was the first judge in the state of Michigan to rule that a non-biological or non-adopted parent in a same-sex couple could potentially have legal standing under the Michigan Custody Act for children being raised by a same-sex couple. And while her opinion, unfortunately, was overruled by the appellate courts, it was later cited nearly a dozen times by Judge Bernard Friedman in his federal court opinion, striking down the ban on same-sex marriage. So while Judge McCarthy's opinion may have been reversed, her findings in regard to what it means to be a parent under Michigan law formed the basis which later allowed all the children of same-sex couples in Michigan to finally have 2 parents. So thank you, Judge McCarthy, for all your great work. To recognize some guests who, unfortunately, last minute could not be here, and that's April and Jane DeBoer-Rouse, who, unfortunately, Jane suffered a cardiac incident, and she's okay. She's at the hospital now, but of course, they were the courageous couple who entered in the 4-year battle against Bill Schuette and Rick Snyder in their effort to that ultimately allowed all same-sex couples in Michigan and around the nation to marry and to have joint legal custody with their children. And we hope that Jane is feeling better and that their family's okay and that she'll be up chasing those 5 kids around any moment now, I hope. Lastly, I wanted to thank, why is everybody who's supposed to be here gone? I wanted to thank Senator Steve Vida. Is he still here? Steve? Okay, he walked out. So Senator Vida championed Senate Bill 121 in his unrelenting fight to amend the Ethnic Intimidation Act to include sexual orientation and gender identity so that LGBTQ people in Michigan can one day, I hope, be protected under our hate crime statute. So when he comes back, you're in the bathroom, I understand, but when you come back, it deserves some recognition for your fight to amend hate crime suit. Finally allow the victims to speak for their state. So each of these people, to me, exemplify the belief that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And they are a constant reminder of what Bobby Kennedy once said, that small actions can be like pebbles being thrown into a still lake, and ripples of hope cascade outwards and eventually change the world. Okay, that was what Barack Obama said in the Rose Garden after the marriage equality decision, but it was a really great quote. So anyway, these people are heroes to all of us, and they deserve our thanks. So before I go any further, I'd also like to mention the passing of a great man who was a big supporter of our work, Judge Richard Scott of the Wayne County Circuit Court, who died a few days ago at the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice. He was a tremendous civil rights advocate and meted out justice with honesty and humility, as much as any judge that I've had the privilege of appearing before. He was a wonderful judge and even a better man. And he will be missed greatly by all of us who believe in the concept of justice and equality for all. And I'd just like to take a moment of silence to honor him. So we formed Fair Michigan in the spring of 2016 and created the Fair Michigan Justice Project in July of that year. Marriage equality was only a year old at that time, and even though our laws in Michigan were some of the worst in the nation for the LGBTQ population, it was still a great time of hope for the community. Hate crimes committed against the LGBTQ community were an area that we felt required greater focus because we understood that this group of people were the most likely to be targeted for criminal acts based solely upon sexual orientation or gender identity. Why is that there? All right, much better. Yet they also suffered from the worst protections of any class of people in our state. And worse, LGBTQ people were much less likely to report crimes committed against them, and law enforcement was less likely to solve those that were, as those cases frequently went without investigation and without prosecution. So we believe that the Fair Michigan Justice Project could be utilized to fill that void, and working in concert with Kim Worthy and the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, she said we're to the Prosecuting Attorneys Association meeting tonight, and of course we thank her for allowing us to bring this project. But with her assistance and working in concert with her office, Fair Michigan brought on board 3 exceptional professionals to work both on cold and new cases of hate crimes perpetrated against the LGBTQ community. And those 3 people on our staff are Jamie Powell-Horowitz, our special prosecutor, Vicki Yost, our special investigator, who had a dog emergency tonight. And Lisa Batt, our victims advocate. Together, in only a year and a half, the Fair Michigan Justice Project has investigated and solved and prosecuted 18 cases. Now this includes homicides, several attempted murder cases, 2 criminal sexual conduct first-degree cases, child abuse, armed robbery, even an extortion case. So the project also tackled many cold cases which had gone years without having been solved. And the Fair Michigan Justice Project solved cases dating back many years within only the first couple of months of our operation. And I'm proud to announce that we currently have a 100% conviction rate, including an armed robbery case where there was a last week, and just today, a conviction on the shooting and attempted murder of a transgender woman.
Wow.
So, now about this, I'm going to say something that, I'm wary of using conviction rates as a barometer of success for the prosecution of criminal cases, because as a prosecutor, your job is not to secure convictions. Your job is to procure justice, whatever that may be. So I am just as proud of the warrants that Jamie denied for lack of sufficient evidence or because the suspects were found to be innocent of the crimes that were alleged as I am of our conviction rate. And part of that is having professionals on board who are incredibly diligent and who leave no stone unturned in investigating the allegations. When we formed this organization, it was my fervent hope that as time went on, discrimination and the vitriolic hatred which permeate our society would wane. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. And since we formed this task force, hate crimes have actually risen an astonishing 29% just in our state. So Michigan is now the fourth highest in the nation for hate crimes prosecuted against our minority communities. This is due in great part, as Amy alluded to, due to the culture of intolerance, which is now pervasive at the highest levels of both our state and our federal offices. In our state government, we have no protections for sexual orientation or gender identity in any form. It means it remains legal to deny LGBTQ people employment, housing, educational opportunities, public accommodations, and even medical treatment. Our Ethnic Intimidation Act, which is our state anti-hate crime law, still specifically excludes sexual orientation and gender identity. And just last week, many of you may know that Governor Snyder appointed Pastor Ira Combs to the Michigan Department of Civil Rights Commission, a man who has spent decades on a mission to deny LGBTQ people even the most basic dignities under the law. He led efforts to support the passage of Proposition 2 in 2004, which many of us fought very hard to overturn, and to use the religious community to fight against Newborn v. Snyder. And most recently, just last year, he led the effort to oppose a non-discrimination ordinance which ultimately passed in Jackson. So Pastor Combs has made discriminating against LGBTQ people his life's work, and yet our governor decided it was appropriate to give this man a position in which he gets to decide whether or not discrimination against gays, bisexuals, and trans people has occurred. And I guess he ought to know, right? So this appointment, I believe, is a slap in the face of every person in the state who cares about the concept of equality. So maybe things are better in the federal government, huh? maybe not so much. I just want to make people aware of some of the measures taken by the Trump administration in just 1 year. Trump tried, so far unsuccessfully, thank goodness, to reinstate the ban on transgender people joining and serving in the military. That was stopped in the courts. Trump appointed Neil Gorsuch to the United States Supreme Court, whose opinions are so antithetical to the rights of LGBTQ people that he actually makes me wish that Scalia was still alive. He's to the right of Scalia. A full 1/3 of all Trump appointees to the federal bench have aggressively been hostile in their positions on LGBTQ-related cases. And the other 2/3 simply have no prior rulings on those issues, but are likely to be of the same mindset. The Trump administration rescinded Obama-era guidelines which protected transgender students under federal civil rights laws, thus permitting trans students to be free from discrimination in their educational facilities, including the right to use bathrooms and locker rooms which align with their gender identity. But no more. Trump administration also rescinded federal policies that prohibited discrimination against trans workers by the federal government. In the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, the Trump administration argued before the Supreme Court that businesses should have the right to legally discriminate against same-sex couples and their families if they cite religious or moral justifications to do so. Trump's Justice Department argued in federal court cases that anti-gay discrimination should be legal and that under no circumstances should the Federal Civil Rights Act be interpreted to protect LGBTQ employees, and that anti-trans bathroom laws and discrimination against trans people in healthcare should also be legal. The Trump administration promulgated a religious liberty guidance memo encouraging federal governmental workers to refuse to process same-sex couples' tax returns, Social Security checks, or any other means by which the federal government interacts with the citizens of our nation. And the Department of Justice will defend any and all actions should a federal worker face a lawsuit for said actions. I'm not done. I'm sorry. Unfortunately. The Department of Health and Human Services enacted a new regulation and created an agency called the Division of Conscience and Religious Freedom that uses our tax dollars to provide doctors, nurses, and other medical staff with the ability to discriminate against the LGBTQ community because providers will be afforded the protection from the federal government when they refuse such services to LGBTQ patients or their children. This is your government in action. Trump also fired all the members of the Presidential Advisory Council on HIV and AIDS and canceled the recognition of LGBTQ Pride Month by the federal government. So that's what happened all just in one single year. So when people wonder why the dramatic uptick in hate crimes against the LGBTQ community, well, it's for this reason. When hatred and bigotry is permitted to flourish at our highest levels of government, that hatred permeates through all of society. And when your government not only sanctions, but actually encourages the mistreatment of a suspect class, it sends the message that intolerance and even violence against this group is perfectly okay. After all, these are people not worthy of the protection of our laws and are undeserving of the rights and benefits that all other residents of our state and citizens of our nation deserve. So our hatred, our acts of contempt and disgust and revulsion are somehow warranted. This project, people, is needed now more than ever. And it is our way of messaging to the LGBTQ community this sentiment: your lives matter. Your safety, your welfare, your protection is just as important as that of anyone else's. And even when your state government and your federal government have abandoned you, we here at Fair Michigan will not. We will be here for you, we will protect you, and we will care about your rights. I thank everyone again for coming here tonight and for supporting our project. And hopefully I've talked long enough that dinner's ready now. Thank you, everybody.